So I'm telling this story here up in Hyde Park at the train station, one of my favorite places, because yesterday when I tried to tell the story in Spring Valley, I got all the cool B-roll, I got all the shots that I needed, location stuff, but then when I tried to tell the actual story, so this was my football field when I was in high school, and I can't believe now it's starting to rain. It started pouring, so I wound up telling the stories in my car, which sounded, it sounded okay, but it looked terrible, and it just made me look lazy, and I don't ever want to be lazy, so I'm going to tell these stories again up here, and I'll share the shots that I took down there with you. Yesterday was quite a long drive. At first I was like, do I really need to go down there to just tell the story? But then I thought, don't be lazy, and like I said, then it rained, so whatever. To the story. It was 1998, and it was Yom Kippur. Now, that's the foundation of the story. The background is that I had moved up to Rockland County, and I was living in a place called Nyack at the time, which is a town that I really love. And I guess some people from Ramapo High School in Spring Valley found out that I had moved back to the area, and a train's going by, so it's going to be loud for a second. Anyways, somebody found out that I had moved back to the area. Somebody contacted me and asked me if I might be interested in helping to coach the football team, because they knew I had played football in college, played football at that high school. I knew some of these kids. And so I thought, yeah, I'll volunteer. It'll be fun, So I wound up doing that, and I could make a whole documentary about that experience, but I'm not going to do that right now. But I am going to tell you the story of Yom Kippur in 1998. I was, well, first of all, Yom Kippur, what is that? For people who don't know, it's like a Jewish holiday, but it is not just any Jewish holiday. It's like the Super Bowl of Jewish holidays. It's the big one. You're not supposed to do anything. You're supposed to fast. You're not supposed to turn on light switches or get in cars or work or do anything. You just, people usually go to synagogue and pray. Now, nobody in my family ever did. Well, my father did go to synagogue on Yom Kippur, but I certainly never went. And in fact, it was a point of contention between me and my father for my whole life, because Yom Kippur happens in the fall, and that's football season, and so I always went to football practice instead of resting and taking the day off like most people who are Jewish. I never did that. I thought it was hypocritical. I could care less about religion or being Jewish or anything like that. It just didn't mean anything to me. Unless, of course, somebody was anti-Semitic and then I became like a Hasidic Jew. I wasn't down with that. I wasn't embarrassed to be Jewish. I just don't believe in organized religion. I think it's like everything that's wrong with the world. I think it's right up there with racism. Like, we're the best, we're the greatest, everybody else is not as good as us, etc. So anyway, you get the idea. So, it just hurt my father, I think, for all those years that I didn't, at least out of respect to him, give him this one day. And, as I got older, I realized that was selfish and stupid, and I could have given my father one day, but I never did. So now it's Yom Kippur, and I'm coaching these kids, and I'm teaching them how to catch punts on this day. I have the wide receivers and the defensive backs. Those are my kids at practice every day. And on this day, I was teaching them how to catch punts. Now that's a real skill, and if you could actually master that skill, you'll always have a good chance to make a team, because it's always hard to find somebody who's really reliable in catching punts. And I'm not going to get into the whole football thing, but just trust me on that. It's good. It's like almost as good as being a piano player. Like, you'll always work as long as you're halfway decent. If you can do that, you're going to work. You're going to be included on the team. You're going to probably get a scholarship. You'll be okay. So anyway, I'm teaching these kids how to catch punts. We're out there for about 3 hours. It starts to get dark, and it was fun. We had a lot of fun. It was a beautiful experience. I probably had 15 or 20 kids out there with me. And I call practice, tell everybody they can go home. And I reached down and I realized I'm missing my gold chain. And so I think what happened is that as we were catching these punts, you catch it against your chest. It was like pounding, pounding, pounding on my chest. And it probably knocked my gold chain off. And my gold chain had on it a Jewish star, which was my father's Jewish star. Now, like I said, this was 1998. This was 10 years after my father had died. And the reason I had the gold chain is because when my father died, I was with him. I took the gold chain off his neck, I put it around my neck, and I kept it. I added my subway token, which I always had around my neck, and always represent New York City. So anyway, this gold chain was pretty much all I had left of my father, and it meant a lot to me. And I honored him by wearing this all the time, even though obviously I was not a religious guy. I wore it proudly. But now it was gone. So anyway, I'm bugging, like I am really upset about this. And a couple of the kids, as they're leaving, they turn around, they're like, "Yo, Coach Rock, what's going on?" And I told them what was happening. And I will never forget this. I mean, it was like the most beautiful gesture, but you saw every single one of those kids come back on the field, get on their hands and knees, and start crawling around this field looking for my gold chain with me. So I drove my car up, because by this time it had gotten dark. I drove my car up, I turned the lights on, and we're all crawling around the field for probably 3 hours. Like, I know that I got home around 11:30 that night, and when I got home without the gold chain. Actually, that's not true. I got home with my gold chain and with my subway token, but the Jewish star was nowhere to be found. Like, one of the kids found the chain, one of the kids found my token, but we couldn't find the star. And so I was obviously devastated by that, like just pretty much broken by that. It was like, I couldn't believe that I had done that, and it was pretty bad. So anyway, about 6 months later, my birthday came, and the love of my life bought me almost an exact replica of that Jewish star to replace the one that I lost to my father's. I mean, it looked exactly like the one that my father had, which was really old. My father was actually wearing his father's Jewish star. So now I had one that looked exactly the same, and the gesture was just incredible to me, and it was very meaningful, and so now I had another gold chain. So anyway, fast forward 10 years, 2008. I'm doing a workshop of my new play, Broke Wide Open, at the Medicine Show Theater. I'm being directed by a woman named Tamron Woodard. And so I actually was given the option to not work on Yom Kippur. We were doing a 3-week workshop, which means we were doing 5 shows a week for 3 weeks as a workshop, try to get producers involved, try to get people to back the show. It was a big deal. So of course, when I was given the option to not work on Yom Kippur, I was like, what, are you kidding me? Like, that would be so hypocritical. I am so not the religious guy. We'll definitely work on Yom Kippur, no problem. So Yom Kippur comes. I had already done like 3 shows. I think this was the 4th night of the run. I had a routine every single night. I was living in Washington Heights at the time, up on 157th Street by Riverside Drive. So I would get onto one train, I would go to Columbus Circle of 59th Street, I'd stop at Whole Foods, I would get myself 3 gigantic water bottles, I would buy my favorite muffin. They had these banana chocolate chip muffins, and I would walk from Columbus Circle to the Medicine Show, which was, I don't know, about maybe a half mile from the train station. I would stop by this dog park, watch these dogs for about 20 minutes, which like filled my heart. And then I'd go into the Medicine Show, go to the bathroom. I know a little too much information right there, but I'm just trying to share this with you. And then I'd be ready for the show. So anyway, on this night, I did all of that I just mentioned. And I'm sitting in the bathroom, and all of a sudden I hear ba-ding, and I look down and I see my gold chain on the floor, and I'm like, oh shit. And I see my token, and I'm like, okay, where's the Jewish star? And I'm looking around, and now I'm frantically looking around, and I can't find the Jewish star. The token is there, the gold chain is there, the Jewish star is gone. This is 10 years later, which was 10 years after my father died, or now it's 20 years after, but when I lost it the first time, it was 10 years. So anyway, I frantically get up, put my clothes back on, I go out to the dog park, I retrace my steps, I look everywhere, because I figured what happened is that my chain probably fell off, and the chain was probably hanging in my shirt, and it just all fell out when I got to the bathroom, but I guess the Jewish star probably fell out somewhere else along the way. So I went to the dog park, I walked back up, I retraced my steps all the way back to Whole Foods. I looked everywhere, and that was it. You know, obviously I couldn't get back on the same train. I couldn't find it. So I had to go back to the theater and do the show. And the reason I mentioned Tamil is because when I got to the theater, everybody who sees me, I guess, doing theater or whatever, they always see that I'm wearing a gold chain. And so when I got to the theater, she goes, "Oh my God, you look naked. Like, you don't even look like you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "You're not wearing your gold chain." And I told her the story. I said, I lost it. I lost the chain was broken. You know, the clasp had broken. But I told her I lost the Jewish star. And I was devastated by that, just absolutely broken. And then I started to think, like, wow, you know, I'm not somebody who believes in religion. I don't really believe in God, so to speak. I mean, I am somebody who believes that there is something much greater than any of us could possibly understand. There's, you know, some kind of something out there that's you know, has something to do with all of this amazingness here on earth. But I don't believe in organized religion. I don't believe in a God or stuff like that, you know, but I do believe in things, you know, like a good friend of mine once said, Rock Wilk believes in things, you know, because I'm very optimistic, I'm hopeful, I believe that anybody can do anything. I just believe, I have faith that things can happen. Like, you know, my mother, just before she died, she said, "You never know." You know, we were talking about something, and that's how I am in my life. It's like pretty much with regards to anything, it's like you never know. But I started to really think about that after I lost this chain for the second time. And so anyway, I replaced the chain, the Jewish star, myself this time. I found another one that looked a lot like the one that, you know, Kathleen had replaced for me, who replaced the first one. And a couple of years later, I got a call to do a show at St. John's to perform Broke Wide Open. It was for a decent amount of money. And, you know, as a performer, as an artist, you don't turn down a lot of gigs that pay real money. And so I decided to do it, but I asked them if we could please get me out of there before sundown. Now, they said it wasn't an issue. And I got to St. John's and I performed the show and I got out of there in time, and I got home, back to Brooklyn. I was now living in Brooklyn at the time, and I got home, everything was intact. And I was just thinking, like, you know, not that I believe in some kind of supernatural thing happened to me and took these these Jewish stars from me, but it just did make me think that, you know, there are things that happen in life sometimes that, you know, have you reflect and think about where you've been and what you've done. And I think that all of this that happened kind of made me a better person, you know, because it made me realize that, you know, sometimes you don't need to, like, be so stubborn about things. You know, I was so stubborn with my father all those years when, you know, I could have just given him one day, you know, like everybody else who was Jewish was taken off the day. You know, nobody else was at football practice. I mean, not that there were a lot of Jewish kids on the team, but, you know, I just thought I could have done that for him. And so since that time, I've done nothing on Yom Kippur. I fast. I light these Yortzeit candles, which are Jewish candles that people light for those who are deceased in their lives. I don't get on the train. I don't, if I go somewhere, I walk. I don't get in the car. I don't do anything pretty much. And I think about my father. And yeah, I'm happy about that. Why not? Because you never know. And so what I lost was just a thing, but I lost a lot more, I felt like. But through that loss, I gained, I think, some valuable insight, and hopefully it made me a better person. And as my friend Tongo once said to me, the better person you become, the better artist you are. And so hopefully it's helped me all around. And I guess in a roundabout kind of way, I have my father to thank for that. So that's the story in 4K. That started on that football field at Rampo High School in 1998. And here I am today with you, sharing this story. So I hope you enjoyed it. Today I'm sharing it with my Sony 35mm f1.8 lens. I love this lens. I gotta be about 2 arms lengths away to get this perspective. I'm shooting at f1.8, so it's probably really blurry behind me. And That's it. I'll see you tomorrow with the next story. Peace.